Hello and welcome back. In the first one we did, we actually set up the pfSense box with the two interfaces, one that was going to my AT&T router and then another one was connecting to my PC directly. Now we're going to be adding this switch. It's just an HP 8-port gigabit switch. But first we need to reset that, and I just thought I might show you guys how to do that real quick. So I will go and show this on my bench. Okay, as you can see, this is the 8-port switch. Show you that a little bit better. And what's really interesting is on the HP switches, the way you reset it is actually, at least on this version, is you put a regular network cable from port 1 to port 2, and then you actually power it on. So right now I'm going to unplug it, and I'm going to power it on. Let it go through its cycle. Okay, once that's complete, what you can do then is you can actually unconnect those from port 1 and 2. And then I usually repower it off and on again. So we're going to unplug it. And at this point, I'm actually going to take our internal from our pfSense and put that into port 1. And I'm actually going to plug my computer into port 3. Now we're going to plug in the switch. And we see from the lights, everything seems to be fine. So this is how we have it set up right now. So now we're actually going to go to the IP address of the router. Okay, so here's our pfSense firewall. And what we're going to do is actually in the interfaces, we can look at the LAN. It says we're using a static IP address. And what we're going to do here is change your IP address. So the IP address before is 192.168.1.1. So what that did was it actually set up your internal to be 192.168.1.1, which is basically everybody and anybody that sets up these systems and stuff like that. We're not making that big of a difference. We're just changing this third octet to 55 just to make it a little bit different than some of the other ones. So once we change that IP address, what we need to do is make sure that in the DHCP services that now the subnet's 192.168.55. We want to make our range in the same. It may have the old 1.x in here. You need to make sure that this is changed as well. And then once you make these changes, you have to make sure that your system itself is on the same segment as that you set it up for. So if you do not use the LAN of 55, then you need to make it whatever you decide you want your internal third octet on there to be. You can leave it 1.1, but I just had some people say that, why are you using the standard one? I just want to show that you can change that. And here we've got actually changed it to 55. We've got our DHCP server and services set up to give out those IP addresses. So everything's good there. Another thing that was brought up was, changing the actual default port because initially it is set to 80. Where you can change that is in your general setup. Here you can also change the name of your host name, your domain, theme, all sorts of different stuff that you can do in there as well. But we want to actually change our port. So what we want to do is we want to change the port. So I am changing the TCP/IP port to 5150. Therefore, when I want to access my system, it'll be 192.168.55.1 port 5150. It is only accessible from the inside, so I feel very secure with that setting and stuff like that. So that is where you change your port for your pfSense. And then what you can do as well is you can change your IP address of the system as well. on your interfaces. That's where you change it. And that will get you to the point where it's a little bit more different. So just to highlight everything or make it a little bit more clear, basically I just wanted to go back and show a little bit more of what you can do to make those changes on here a little bit more different or non-standard, if you will, for security reasons. So we changed the port, we changed the IP address. We've got a switch now. The system connects to the switch. What we're going to do next is, like I said, I reset this switch. And by doing that, unfortunately, the default management of this is on the 192.168.2.10 is the actual IP address of this. So we need to change that IP address. So I'll show you how to do that real quick. So basically what we have to do is we actually need to change the IP address of our actual Ethernet on our system. And right now it's using DHCP, which is fine. But we need to change this to a manual. We're going to turn it on. And then the IP address we're going to give this is 192.168.2.11. And it's going to be standard 24. And our gateway is going to be 192. Now this is just to change the management interface on the actual switch itself. That's the only reason why we're doing this. Do not keep that as a permanent IP address. You will not be able to get out to the internet with it. It is there just so that we can actually connect to the switch itself. So we're going to go back out and we're going to go to the switch itself. As I said, it's 192.168.2.10. And as you can see, this is now logged into the switch itself. There's a default password is blank, so we can just hit log in here. We are definitely going to add a password to that for security reasons. And we can just do a quick rundown of the switch. You can use whatever switch you want. This is just the one that I happen to have. So it gives us a little picture of what is set up, what ports are active and stuff like that along the lines. The name, all that stuff. We'll leave that as is for now. It's also got VLAN support, so we'll get into VLANs eventually, but right now we're not going to. Our biggest thing here is we actually want to change the IP address. And as you can see right now, it's 192.168.2.10. We want to put it on our segment or our management, which is going to be on 55. We can leave it 10 because we're only giving out IP addresses 100 to, I think, 199 for DHCP. So this is a IP address that's non-DHCP. And we're going to give this a default gateway of 192.168. This is going to be the default gateway for our 55 segment 1, and then the IP address of this system itself is going to be 10. And then we can hit apply. Now that we apply this IP address, we will not be able to get back to this box until we undo our static IP address that we put in here. So we need to redo our IP address on the system itself. So we'll go back to here, go to properties. We're going to edit this. We're actually going to change this back to automatic and save. And then we should get our 55 IP address back onto this box. We can check that. With ipconfig/all, we can see home.arpa, and we can see that it has a 55.101. So we should now be able to get to this switch. That was the old IP address. We're going to put in the new IP address. And we'll just say continue to that because it's just saying there's two admins in there. We're going to log in with blank, and now we're going to change the password. And we're going to put in our new password. Apply it. Log out. Make sure it's there. I'm going to try logging in with nothing and incorrect password. So we're going to put in the proper password in. and we have access to it. So we now have access to the switch. We now have access to our pfSense on the 55 segment, and we already did the user manager where we actually disabled the admin and had the MBTech. So now for security, we've got MBTech as our username for our admin. So that's some of the security. We've got the port changed from 80 to 5150. We've got the default network segment changed from 192.168 1.1 to 192.168.55.x, and that's pretty much it for that security part of this. This is how it is set up currently right now with the system on port 3, as well as the pfSense box there as well. What we're going to be doing next is we're actually going to be adding wireless. I was able to pick up a quick, easy little wireless access. It's actually a TP version. You know, I think I picked it up for $39. It is just for my lab. I just wanted to show you the basic setups. It's very similar to a real setup. If you're not happy with those types of systems, like I said, I am not supporting any of them. These are just the ones that I have and I like to use, and they seem to work decent enough for my lab. Hope you enjoyed that segment. Basically what we did is we added the switch. We put a little bit more security on the pfSense box itself, and now we've got connectivity to multiple ports there if we need it, and we'll be setting up the actual wireless access point to that in the next one, and then we'll have the basic network set up, and then we can go from there. Hope you enjoyed this. If you would, please like and subscribe, and I'll be getting another video out here real soon. Thanks a lot.